I've been looking into faith. So all my life, because I survived satanic abuse, I have had a very deep curiosity about spirituality. I guess because of the things I saw, I've always been trying to find the light. But the gift it's given me is I have a very good map of my emotions. So there's always positive in these experiences, and I can have my dark times, but when I emerge, I think I realized that, maybe I had to have this experience. And yeah, faith is very hard for me. I went into Buddhism and Jehovah's Witnessing and Tai Chi, all manner of things, looked at Ayurvedic health, Chinese medicine. And I've only just started to read the Bible. I went on to a very child level about faith, and there was distrust. And I think this whole thing is about, who can we trust, who can't we trust? So this was about how do we trust ourselves? So, following our own leadership and our own hearts. And this brings me on to 1984, religion taken out of my school. And anybody who mentioned God or the Bible or Christianity were crazy. So this discouragement over faith and religion and everything. So I want to read you something, because I've only just got this Bible, and I know I was talking about appearance and everything, and I just found this really interesting because I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting to get into some complicated verses and things I didn't understand, and that I would have to dive in and unpick it, which I might have to do later on. But it says, a discouragement conspiracy is afoot. Companies spend billions of dollars to convince us that we are deficient and inadequate. To sell face cream, they tell us our faces are wrinkled. To sell new clothes, they pronounce our clothes are out of fashion and out of date. To sell hair colour, they must persuade us that our hair is dingy. Marketing companies deploy the brightest minds and deepest pockets of our generation to convince us that we are chubby, smelly, ugly, and out of date. We are under attack. That's from the Bible. We can relate to the two cows grazing in a pasture when a milk truck drove by. On the side of the truck were the words pasteurized, homogenized, standardized, vitamin A added. Noticing this, one cow said to the other, "It makes you feel kind of inadequate, doesn't it?" And I thought that kind of sums up where we're at. Faith is being discouraged. And it seems, I remember when the war started, the war on terrorism, and I followed it. And the whole thing was, it was a war on hearts and minds. And we were here living our lives, and it was happening over there. And this is what is happening to us. It's a war on hearts and minds. It's psychological tactics coming at us. So you have to button up, go into your intellect, and the more intelligent you are, the more acceptable you are, which has primed everybody. And it's really interesting because I think a lot of people that have fallen for the game we are navigating are intellectuals above all. And so I kind of feel there's a solution for us, because if this is a psychological attack coming at us, well then let's take our heart into the trenches and get into our heart, because then all of this psychological stuff that's coming at us, well, it's not going to have such an effect. So, and they can only get to our hearts if they go through our mind, which is the thing that seems to be happening. Yeah, and it's this word crazy. It's almost kind of, we all have an imagination. We can all speculate. And I didn't really know when fact was the new religion, because there is fiction. And the greatest writers would explore these ideas, and they are acclaimed, and they make a lot of money out of it. So I mean, all ideas are valid. Yeah, the narrative is very, very prescriptive. Yeah, and people are being rewarded for compliance, definitely. Yeah, and it's this discouragement wall that is up, which I know a lot of us are experiencing in terms of the crazy firewalls, and how those people are being discouraged from looking. It's a bit like an electric fence around them, and I mean, I'd like to know and understand and get more into how they've been brainwashed, because I've recovered from pretty intense brainwashing, which used electrocution, etc. So there must be some sort of shock tactic via technology. I did. No, I can't remember who it was. He was one of the founders of Wikipedia, who was saying that Facebook is set up to give shocks, and it's primed as well. You know, the whole dopamine like, and using ignorance as a weapon, because I know I heard they were rotating friends and they were doing experiments, and that was really interesting actually, because I had a few friends that were very, very tapped into Facebook, and I was reading about these experiments they were doing, behavior experiments, where they were playing around with friend feeds. So they were kind of, you know, here's the pool of friends, and then they were cutting friends out and playing around with that. And a lot of friends who were dependent on Facebook were having meltdowns, literal meltdowns, you know, turning into traumatized children. It was interesting, and I just watched it and I thought, I wonder if this is the consequence of that. And I won't use them, because I just thought, well, if I was higher up and I was getting all the feeds from Facebook, you could have a graph, because the one thing that artificial intelligence doesn't have yet is knowing how we feel, you know, in our heart level. So it seems to me they're going after the heart, because they can take this, but they can't take this. And I can only imagine all these emojis are a bit like hieroglyphics in Egypt, that they can have those up and know exactly the mood of the nation by those emojis. So, you know, that's something people aren't considering, because they think that Facebook is lovely. So these are our temples, you know, they're called temples for a reason. So it's whatever you let into your temple, into your cave. So I find, you know, if I'm stressed or I need to focus, I will hold my temples, which is really soothing. You know, and I'm going to do more videos, because I'm also a reflexologist and a complementary therapist, and having worked lots of trauma, it's the power in the body. So everything we see outside of ourselves that is made by man has at some point come from the body. So Leonardo da Vinci was the first person to strip the body, and he drew and created the first anatomy and physiology books. So you can see, like, in buildings and engineering and all sorts, it's almost, you know, a lot of the intelligence, the more we learn about the body, then advances happen. So you've got the feminine and the masculine. So there is a polar, you know, in our vision, because we've got like two eyes, quite obvious. And how Facebook is mapped out is there is a lot of information buzzing and all sorts, and it takes the eyes away from the center. So they're looking over here, looking over there. So it's a real split on your masculine and your feminine. And I find that Facebook really does do that. So, you know, if you're on any news feeds or anything and there's a lot going on, just kind of maybe be aware of that, because that is very disorientating. And I find, and this is another tool and technique as well. So, you know, if there's a lot of stress, to like gently take your fingers and just like place them over your eyeballs and try to settle, because you might feel your eyeballs are flicking, because the nerve, they are directly connected to the nervous system. So by settling down these vibrations, you can help to settle down your nervous system. And I've been doing that with really great effect. And it is interesting. There are times when, you know, my eyeballs are almost fighting back. So if I'm almost holding them still, I can feel them almost trying to fight to go in different directions. And there's also another thing, realizing that staying positive takes work. Sad but true, because how we are designed, we're designed to prioritize negativity. So this goes way back from seeing a threat on the horizon. So of course all the news is negative, because they know this. It will get our attention, because we are made that way to protect ourselves. So unfortunately, in the world that we live in, it's having to work extra hard to be aware of it and to transform it into positivity. So these are all kind of things of, like, you know, being aware of. I know living two worlds causes dissonance. I was created with multiple personalities, so I have integrated. Again, this may be of interest. I try to keep stuff away from my own personal journey, because I don't want to feel like I'm going on and on and on about myself, but it kind of seems relevant. So in my abuse, it was programming, so using extreme torture to split my mind basically into rooms, partitions, and then each of those. So if you can imagine, it's a bit like a pie. It was the trauma would create these partitions, and then my dad was able, a bit like a computer with rooms, was able to use hand signals or certain touch and codes to bring up different parts. So each part had a different coding system. So a big part of my recovery has been to remember, and that's going via, and the way I did it, it was almost stay in the present, notice the triggers, and then try to focus on that in the present and challenge it, which then would often bring up memories, or body memories. So it would be looking after my body, and then the body would release memories, and then with a therapist having to go into the memory, which sometimes I could be paralyzed. If it was really bad, I could be pretty petrified, like PTSD. So I was talking to a veteran that I bumped into yesterday, coincidentally, and we were having a really good conversation about it. And we both hugged and cried, because people don't really understand, but it's flashback. So, I mean, anybody who's experienced trauma, well, we're all experiencing trauma to a degree, and it will, when it's triggered, it's on a loop. It keeps playing it like shock. You know, if anybody's ever had a shock car, it plays on a loop, goes over and over, and it's quite surreal. So there's an emotional energy charge. So for me, it was, those would go on a loop, and I would be petrified, and then I'd have to almost de-ice and gently thaw out my emotions by moving my body, or a technique that I found accidentally was, the body goes into the trauma position, so it plays over and the body goes into where it was. And I realized, just by raising an arm and changing the body in the memory, actually was like an overlay. So I do photography and video, so you can imagine you've got one image is the past, and then there's a trigger which brings up, so in the present, that image is there. So it's almost kind of drawing another picture on it. And by drawing another picture on it, it's going, oh, that's different to that. This is now and that is then. It's that kind of principle. It's been an arduous journey, to say the least. Yeah, it has. Yeah, but this is the thing. This is like, even these crazy psychopaths like my dad, is they only have this. My dad's fascination was the mind. It was about controlling the mind. He had no concept of the heart. They are blind to this. They want to own this. A lot of the things they're doing is because it's almost like, you know, they want to eat out our hearts. It's like they don't have it. They're jealous of it. They're envious of it. It's like it's chaotic. And being in a relationship is, you know, people like that don't like joy. They don't like humor. They don't like all this. They see it as messy and chaotic and something they cannot control. So it's our advantage. So as painful and difficult as all my challenges have been, it has given me, they've almost kind of given me an armory and insights. So yeah, I've been given so much, but plus, because not only do I know how they operate, how they work, but I'm a feeling, faithful human. So, and that's what makes us so much more powerful, because once we know the game and once we know the tactics, because they're all psychological, we're always going to come out better, because we have heart, creativity, imagination, and the ability to connect. And like they say, there is no honor amongst thieves. So it may seem that it's this authoritarian, oppressive regime, but there is no honor amongst thieves. So they're paranoid. They're scared and paranoid. And I did when I was in the Hollywood circuit. So I was, don't know if you say lucky or not. I mean, I thought I was, because my dream, because I wasn't validated. I mean, my parent was a television, so I spent most of my time wanting to be on the other side of the glass, because I thought, you know, I'd sit there watching it, just trying, you know, dealing with my trauma. I think I want to be in there. I want to be in there. It's safe. I want to be in with those happy, joyful people, because this is, yeah, because joy, you know, joy angers them, makes them bitter, and they don't understand it, and they don't like it, and they want it, but they can't have it, and they don't know how it feels. So they don't, you know, we've all met people like that, haven't we? We are powerful. You know, this is a war on hearts and minds, but the enemy doesn't understand the heart. So, you know, we've got the advantage. We've got both the heart and the mind. And our challenge, as we all know, is that a lot of people they're walking around with the big black hand of the piping down of all of this mind control, you know, that has a grip on their heads. So coming at them intellectually with facts, anything psychological or intellectual, we can't do it. We can't get in there, because there's a firm grip. So we can go to the heart, find a way to connect with the heart. And if anybody's in a relationship, I would have done this in my relationship, but I think there were other issues and other problems. But if it was going to go, you know, if it was going to work, then of course I would have done this. But it's, you know, say if there was somebody here who was asleep, then it's trying to find a way of connecting on a very simple, innocent level with simple questions, such as, oh, okay, how do you know that's true? Oh, where did you read that? Oh, who said that? Oh, that's really interesting. I'd like to see more about that. And maybe encouraging them into looking a bit more may be an option. We have nails. Now, the human body protects the things that are important. So these areas are being protected, and just something to keep you going maybe until tomorrow. This is the heart. meridian. So if you have any pain, and it takes a while, you know, to get sensitized. I mean, even if you put your fingers together and you just feel those tips here, that energy circuit, and you just, what you do if you're in pain or anything is you just put all your tips together, because your energy circuit is closed. And you can do that if you feel threatened by anybody or you need to close down. You can do this in front of you. I mean, you can see, I think, Trump, a lot of people, go, oh, that's hand gestures, but actually you're connecting your outer ear, your inner wisdom, your outer vision and your inner vision, and the head. But it's just gently feeling those pads. You might even get pulsating. It's pretty hard to do, actually. It's one of those where the mind goes crazy and it's just come back to the sensation. I can get myself into an absolute state of bliss by just working the nails. I haven't been doing reflexology for quite some time, but I do work it myself. I've got so with my just the basics, which some may know, you've got your left side is your feminine polarity, and your right side is your masculine. So if you can be aware which side is your stronger or your weaker, that will give you a good insight regards your balance. So my right side is weaker than my left side, but then I've had a very vicious, tyrannical father, and the masculine is defense, protection, being out in the world, whereas the feminine is the inner world. It's masculine, feminine, really, and that's another thing that's being discouraged. So we're coming full circle. Masculine and feminine is under attack and being discouraged. So now there's meant to be a million things in between, which personally, that for me, and the whole sex changing with children and all sorts plays into the transhuman, because once one is not a creation of God, they have no human rights. So I can see this is being pushed out in education as well, because if I was to change myself, I'm no longer made of God. So we can see why they are pushing everything to take us away from God's law, common law, which, and this is, the common law, they strip the education away. So trying to state common law is very difficult, and one has to go through so much intimidation. So almost deemed crazy again. So it's a spiritual war. It's a war against nature, and it's all about possession. Like psychopaths, it's all about possessiveness and owning and controlling. Everything is upside down, absolutely everything. And I think that's why I keep saying, try and stay in the grey, stay in the body, stay in the heart. So I try and give you tips. I do it regularly. The walking on the grass and sensation. Another thing before we go is, this is all theoretical. These are things I theorized, and then I tried them because I needed a lot of survival tips to come out of my psychology, because of course I was so controlled, roboticized. Getting into my heart was pretty hard because it was pretty haunted, just from the trauma. So I've been clearing that out. When I feel really small and I feel really anxious and I feel really scared, I grip something, even if I grip this, and this is your head. So if you put your thumb and you grip around your thumb like so, and you hold it tight, you are taking your intellect, you are covering it with all your other senses. And if you hold it very, very tight, that should calm down your thinking, because you are protecting your covering over your own intellect. And there's a lot of different things and tips you can use these senses to your advantage. It's like circuits. It's like a computer. like and kind of programming. So that's kind of something you can get on with. And also, if you think, you know, like monkeys and in the wild is if they're scared, they grip. So again, it goes that in a child level. It's like, you know, even if you have a cushion and you go, I'm feeling really anxious or small, you can grip something. And I think it's the, you know, these pads release chemicals. So these reflexes are actually, you know, you touch something, messages are going straight to your brain. So these are, you know, almost stimulating chemicals and all sorts. So you can, you know, get a lot of comfort from that, because that is telling the brain you're clinging on, you're safe. So there's a lot we can do and use our body to navigate our hearts and our feelings, and also take over our minds that are being pushed, provoked, stimulated, triggered. They're trying to play us like pianos. I don't know, or whatever the metaphor, but that's what we're up against at the moment.